You're making six figures, or at least close to it. On paper, you've made it. Your parents think you're rich. Your coworkers assume you're good with money. Your bank app, it looks fine. Not scary, not embarrassing, and yet somehow every month feels like you're sprinting on a treadmill that's slowly speeding up. You don't feel broke the way broke is supposed to feel. No eviction notices, no maxed out credit cards screaming at you, but you also don't feel ahead. You're still checking your balance before ordering drinks, still telling yourself, next month I'll save more, still wondering how you're making $100,000 a year and somehow feel financially fragile. And the uncomfortable thought creeps in. Wait, is this it? Here's the thing. If that made you slightly uneasy, this video is for you. We're about to talk about the stuff nobody warned you about. Now look, I want to get something out of the way immediately. If you're making 100K and still broke, it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're irresponsible. And it's definitely not because you just need to budget better. That advice is lazy, and it's wrong. This is a psychology problem disguised as a money problem. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with a stat that should honestly scare you a little. According to a 2023 survey by Lending Club, nearly 60% of Americans earning over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Let that sink in. More than half of six-figure earners don't feel financially secure. Even more interesting, a separate report from the Federal Reserve shows that nearly 40% of people earning over 100K would struggle to cover a $1,000 emergency without using credit. So if you're watching this thinking, why do I feel like I should be doing better than this? Congratulations, you're normal. But here's what most people don't realize. A 100K salary is not what it used to be. On paper, it sounds massive. Psychologically, it still feels elite. But mathematically, in many cities, it's the new middle class with nicer branding. Let's do some actual math, because numbers don't care about vibes. You make $100,000 a year. After federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance, and maybe a 401k contribution if you're being responsible, your take-home pay might be around $5,500 to $6,000 a month. In high-tax states, even less. Now let's subtract reality. Rent or mortgage, $2,200. Car, payment, and insurance, $600. Utilities, phone, internet, $300. Groceries, $500. Student loans, $400. Subscriptions, gym, streaming, software, $200. Gas, commuting, random life stuff, $300. We haven't even talked about eating out, travel, weddings, gifts, or emergencies yet. You're already at roughly $4,800. That leaves maybe $700 to $1,000 a month. Sounds fine until it isn't. Because here's where it gets interesting. Your expenses don't just increase with income. Your expectations do too. When you were making $45,000 a year, you said, if I just made 70K, everything would be easier. Then you hit 70K and thought, okay, but 100K is where life really starts. Now you're here, and the finish line moved again. This is lifestyle inflation, but not in the way people usually explain it. It's not just bigger apartments or nicer cars. It's identity inflation. You start living like the person you think a 100K earner is supposed to be. Nicer clothes, better phone, more convenience, less tolerance for discomfort. You Uber instead of walk. You DoorDash instead of cook. You upgrade not because you need to, but because it feels reasonable now. And every one of those decisions feels small. That's the trap. No single expense ruins you. It's the quiet accumulation of, I deserve this. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what's the problem? Isn't the point of earning more to enjoy life? Yes. But here's the thing. There's a difference between enjoying your money and anesthetizing yourself with it. Most people making 100K aren't buying freedom. They're buying relief. Relief from stress. Relief from inconvenience. Relief from feeling behind. And relief is expensive. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. You get used to better very quickly, but you never get used to not having a safety net. So you feel pressure, constant low-grade pressure. You're not broke, but you're not safe either. And safety is what your brain actually wants. This is why budgeting alone doesn't fix the problem, because the issue isn't math, it's emotional leakage. Let me give you an example. I know someone, we'll call him Mike. Mike makes 110K. Solid job, good benefits, smart guy. On paper, he saves about $400 a month, but every 3 or 4 months, something happens. Car repair, wedding travel, dentist bill, last minute trip, and boom, savings back to zero. So Mike says, I just need to make more money. But here's what most people don't realize. More income doesn't solve poor margin. Margin is the gap between what you make and what you need to feel safe. And most six-figure earners have razor-thin margin because they built their life to match their income, not their values. Think of it like this. You didn't design your finances. They happened to you. Job offer here, apartment upgrade there, lifestyle creep disguised as adulthood. And suddenly, you're locked into a life that requires your current income just to maintain. That's not wealth, that's dependency. Now look, this is where people get defensive. They'll say, but my expenses are normal. Or, everyone I know lives like this. Or my favorite, I don't even spend that much. But wealth isn't about how much you spend. It's about how much control you have. If missing 2 paychecks would wreck your life, you're not wealthy. You're just well paid. That realization hurts, but it's powerful. Because once you see the real problem, the solution becomes clearer. The goal is not to feel rich. The goal is to feel unbreakable. And that requires a mindset shift most people never make. You have to stop optimizing for comfort and start optimizing for leverage. Leverage over your time, leverage over your choices, leverage over future stress. This is why people making 60K with low expenses sometimes feel freer than people making 150K. Because freedom comes from slack. Slack in your budget, slack in your schedule, slack in your nervous system. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people making 100K are one emotional decision away from financial chaos. A burnout moment, a breakup, a job change, I deserve this purchase spree. And that's terrifying when you really sit with it, but also empowering because it means you can fix it without doubling your income. Here's how. First, you need to separate adult expenses from identity expenses. Adult expenses keep you alive. Identity expenses signal who you think you are. A safe apartment? Adult expense. Reliable transportation? Adult expense. A luxury car to feel successful? Identity expense. Overspending on convenience because you're busy? Identity expense. Here's the thing, identity expenses are not evil, but they should be intentional, capped, and earned, not automatic. Most people let their identity expenses quietly consume all their surplus. Second, you need to flip the savings equation. Most people do this. Income minus expenses equals savings. Wealthy people do the opposite. Income minus savings equals lifestyle. You don't save what's left over, you spend what's left over. That one change alone can completely rewire your financial future. And no, this doesn't mean living like a monk. It means paying yourself first, not with what's convenient, but with what actually moves the needle. Third, you need a boring goal that excites future you. Emergency funds are not exciting. Investment accounts are not sexy, but neither is stress. A 6-month cash buffer is one of the most underrated life upgrades imaginable. It turns job stress into optional stress. It turns emergencies into inconveniences. And once you have that buffer, something wild happens. Your brain calms down. You stop making fear-based decisions. You stop chasing status for validation. You start thinking longer term. This is where it gets interesting, because once you're not scared, you can actually be strategic. You can negotiate harder, say no more often, invest more consistently. You stop confusing income with intelligence, and you realize something most people never do. Money doesn't buy happiness, but margin buys peace. And peace is the platform for everything else. So if you're making 100K and still feel broke, don't beat yourself up. You're not failing. You're just playing a game no one explained to you. A game where the rules quietly changed, the finish line moved, and everyone pretends everything is fine. But now you know. And knowledge doesn't magically fix your finances, but it gives you back control. Control over your spending. Control over your future. Control over how much of your life you sell just to feel okay. And that's the real flex. Not the salary, not the car, not the lifestyle. The ability to breathe. The ability to walk away. The ability to say, I'm okay even if things go sideways. That's wealth. And once you taste it, you'll never go back.